We are in Riga, capital of Latvia, on the Baltic Sea. It's late October and the weather is grey, a little bit rainy, although, and thankfully, not freezing cold. Riga is strategically placed at the end of the river Daugava, which allowed the city to connect directly with Russia and also with the German cities on the Baltic Sea.
Riga was founded by the Germans in 1201 as a stronghold in their crusade against the northern pagans. The heart of the medieval city comes from the days when the city was ruled by the Knights of the Teutonic Order. One of the iconic buildings dating from the medieval period is the House of the Blackheads, which is the one behind me. It was built in 1344 as the house of the Guild of the Unmarried German Merchants. One can only imagine what kind of party must have happened inside here. It was destroyed during World War II, bombed by the Germans, and it was completely rebuilt from scratch in 1999.
Riga was one of the key centers of the Hanseatic League from the 13th to the 15th century. The urban fabric of its medieval core reflects the prosperity of those times.
This is the Riga Cathedral and it's been built in 1211 and is one of the largest churches in the Baltics and is characterized by many kinds of architectures inside. The houses behind me are called Three Brothers and they have been built during the medieval time but all at different times and they're one of the most iconic monuments in Riga.
Sweden snatched the city in 1621, making Riga the largest city and the largest trading post in the Swedish Empire, even larger than Stockholm. This one is the so-called Swedish Gate. These were the old medieval city walls, and the Swedes created this gate to connect with the barracks that are just on the other side of the walls.
And then the Russians arrived and they added an industrial element to the city. And by the 19th century, it was one of the largest cities in the Russian Empire. And it is in those years that the city expanded beyond the medieval gates of the old town. In the first 20th century, Riga was flourishing economically and also culturally. We can see, in all these Art Nouveau buildings, which were common in the Central and Northern Europe. And actually, in Riga, there is the most amount of Art Nouveau buildings in the world. Museum of Natural History in Riga, top with kids.
Siamo arrivati, adesso entriamo dentro, appena appena siamo dentro che non piove.
We are at the Riga Market, which is a UNESCO site, and is one of the biggest in the whole Europe.
The market looks like a lot like the Odessa market, which we went in 2019. And actually you can find like products from all over the former Soviet Union, like the sweets that we found in Georgia.
The Independent Republic of Latvia was founded in 1918 in the aftermath of World War I. It lasted 23 years, until 1941 when it was invaded by the Germans and the Soviets. And it remained under Soviet dominance until 1991, when it finally declared independence.
The corner house is the building which housed the KGB in Riga during the Soviet times, and reminds how tough was life without freedom and under surveillance from the secret services.
The Freedom Monument behind me was erected in the 1930s, but surprisingly, it was not demolished by the Soviet authorities. Despite brutal deportation to the gulags and an oppressive regime, the Soviet authorities highly consider Riga for its human capital. In fact, they built here some of the most technologically advanced factories of the Soviet times.
Having been invaded by every regional power, Riga has small cultural layers and less homogeneous population than its neighbors.
Riga is a fusion of different cultures, German, Nordic, Polish, Russian, but ultimately it has its own soul, and that is what we really enjoyed in visiting the city.
Latvian people fancy themselves to be the more artistic of the Baltic lot. And creativity requires ability to think independently. Riga and Latvia are proud not just of their traditions and their heritage, but more importantly, of their free spirit and independence.